Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Thank you so much for supporting SAG-AFTRA Foundation special screening tonight of Punching Henry. Poor Henry. I mean, poor Henry. I mean, you know, life of a stand-up comic. Like, why do they do this? Let's find out right now. Let's bring up the co-writer and the director of Punching Henry, Gregori Viens. Did I get it right? Okay. And let's bring out the co-writer and star of Punching Henry, Henry Phillips. All right.
Thanks. Thank you.
Now, but before we were waiting outside, and I don't know how many of you had a chance to see the 2009 film Punching the Clown, which won the Audience Award at the Slamdance Film Festival. And that was semi-autobiographical with a capital A, as this was. But gentlemen, like, what made you decide to sort of pick up that ball again and run with it in a sort of different way while still being autobiographical?
Well, we wanted the first movie, as a lot of people know, didn't make any money. Greg paid for it, and he didn't make any of his money back. So we wanted to just do that again, you know? Why not?
I knew this was going to be fun.
No. Greg?
Yeah, just thought, you know, film history, there's no sequels to movies that lost money usually, so we thought we could make history, you know, yeah.
Could be a first. Yeah.
First to something. But actually what happened is that that's true, but also we met a couple of producers one guy who saw the premiere at Slamdance and who felt we could make a series. So the story of this film was based on the reality of our failure to make a series with a major network. Yeah, mm-hmm. And so, you know,
so it's
go on forever. We could do this every few years. Huh?
So it's meta because, you know, you tried to make a story about you know, struggling comic. It didn't happen, but you made a film, and the subplot of the film is about they're trying to make a TV show about your wife.
The next movie is going to be about making a movie out of that situation where that didn't make any money either. So just going to keep going forever. Failure. But I think failure is hilarious. I've always thought it's funny. Like all of my favorite you know, comedians or whatever, it's like it was always the ones that, you know, put those down, and I think that's just to me there's nothing funnier than that, you know. It's like on any level, you know. So those are the stories we like to tell.
I knew this was going to be a fun Q&A. But, you know, in terms of writing about you know, a film about being on the road. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, I'm watching the film. I'm watching. There was a series that started last week on HBO called Crashing. So the timing for the movie is like perfect. Like why why do this?
Why do it? Well, you know, it is a good question. I was doing an interview recently where they were like, most movies are about, you know, the protagonist finding something insurmountable and overcoming it. And most of the things in this movie, you know, pretty surmountable stuff. I mean, you could figure out how to get out of, you know, getting your car out of impound or whatever it is. But at the same time, I think that I sit around with friends of mine that are comics, actors, musicians, you know, like I've been, you know, doing this for 20 plus years now, and it's like the stories that we laugh the hardest about are just these little dumb things that happen. Like you put your foot in the mouth at a party and you find out it was some big agent or something, or, you know, you make a really dumb career choice, and those are really fun to laugh about. And so I think those stories need to be told just as much as the Mount Everest story. The Mount Everest story, for one thing, I don't have one, but also we've seen that story before, but we haven't seen all these, you know. So
I'm guessing that this scene at the bar where you show up 2 hours early to do a sound check, that really happened.
Yeah. Well, there's there's a classic thing that a lot of musicians know, and it's just that sound guys, they love to be the master of their domain, and it's like they're okay with and I'm generalizing, so if you're a sound person, but in general it's like they want you to know, okay, you're putting me out, you fucked up, this is on you, but I'm gonna save the day with this dumb little thing that I'm gonna change or whatever. And so Mike Judge, who plays that part, was a traveling musician for years, and he was a fan of the first movie, and that was the part that Greg and I pitched to him, and he loved it because he was like, "Oh, yeah, that's great."
In fact, I'm sure you're interested in the process. The part was different. The part was a manager initially, and the guy that we wanted to play the manager was not available. And we thought, we could maybe ask. And also, Mike had another part. We had another part for Mike that he couldn't do because of scheduling. So he said, "Well, why don't you do this part?" And he said, "Yeah, could it be a sound guy?" And so, and could I have a ponytail?
Did anybody know that was Mike Judge, by the way? I'm just curious, yeah.
I didn't know until the end.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, wow. But, I want to ask you about, you guys go way back, really. What is your writing process like?
Wow, it started, 94, 92?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we met back at UCLA, back in college, early 90s, yeah. And we slowly, I was getting into documentary filmmaking. Henry was a rock musician. He was getting into parodying his own songs.
I started, basically, we were both political science majors, and then at the end of that, we realized we didn't want to have anything to do with that. So, I started becoming a comedian. Greg became a filmmaker, went to film school, and I would just always tell him these stories, it's just like ridiculous things, it's like, I was at a show and this guy said he came out to see me and he was so upset I wasn't going to do the song, he banged his head into a parking meter and had to go to the hospital. And Greg was just like, hearing all these things and just being like, we gotta make a movie about this stuff. And
Old.
That's in it. Yeah, literally. Yeah. Back in '96, we made a mockumentary on 16 millimeter, and I guess that's probably where our writing process started.
Yeah, the idea of getting actors together who are able to ad lib and who are able to bring kind of their own persona to a character. And at that time, we wrote a very vague script, and we used a lot of ad libbing. And it was a mockumentary. Back in those days, mockumentary was still something you would,
It got pretty overdone by that. After a certain point, it was like, geez, every commercial, Frosted Flakes commercial, it's a mockumentary, It's like.
But yeah, we kind of rode that wave a little bit, and but it was successful in festivals. And then we thought, we worked together on some shorts and some TV stuff for IFC, and then we thought, what happened is I was teaching at UCLA. I was teaching film at the film school at UCLA, and my students were not using our equipment, our 16 millimeter cameras. They started using HD cameras that they would rent, and I thought, wow, of course they are. It's much cheaper than the actual process of printing and processing. And so I told Henry, look, I think we can actually do this now on our own. We've been trying to make this film for a few years and failed.
Technology is what made it possible.
Yeah. So, and we did. We got some people together, some great comics, some good friends, some of my students, a lot of my students playing extras and that kind of thing to fill out a crowd, and we made that the previous one, and then.
And I think it's important to mention that, like, for me, it's always been about the art. Like, I could care less whether Greg makes his money back again, but, it's just all about the artistic process. No, I'm just kidding.
So now you know.
And I should mention my cousins kicked in a little bit of money, too, to help out. They never saw any of that either.
One. Yeah, we don't have a financial stake in this one.
No, but we should stop making these jokes because the investor's in the back. But, no, but, yeah, I just, we are living in a really great time right now for for being able to make our own stuff, films, the podcast. I have a web series also, and it's a lot of fun. And that was the most exciting thing back in 2009. Just we're literally showing up. There's a trailer. There's cameras, and it's like we're actually making the movie that we were the whole time trying to pitch and trying to option and trying to get some studio. We joke about how there was an option deal that we made, and they sent us out to Europe to try to pitch for pre-sales. It was Granada Films for foreign pre-sales, and we did all these meetings. We had like first class plane and train tickets and really beautiful hotels. They literally spent about the same amount of money for those trips that we wound up using to make the whole movie later, on our own. So it's just crazy.
It is crazy. Like there was a film at Sundance 2 years ago called Tangerine, which was shot on an iPhone. And
it's good.
That's good.
Amazing.
I didn't know that
this is
until
the
after
age
the
that
film.
we're in.
That's how.
And it looks like it's shot on an iPhone, but it's fantastic. It looks. I mean, it shows you. Yeah, we don't care. It's great. It's personal.
You can tell
it's
a story.
Intimate. Yeah.
So in terms of sort of mining material for gold, I'm guessing there was a lot to choose from. Like, what were some of the golden moments that you had in your experiences on the road that you wanted to film and you just couldn't do it?
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think. I mean, between the two, we've pretty much covered.
There's one we tried to.
yeah.
It was the.
The rubber chicken thing. Yeah. There was a town. All right, so this is a scene that we wanted to have in the movie, but it just would have cost way too much money. But it's a true story, so why don't I tell you? It's I was in I think it was like Grand Rapids, Michigan, or something, and they were having this comedy festival, and the whole town was getting together with this thing where they were going to win the award for most rubber chickens thrown. And it was kind of one of these Guinness things where it's like nobody really has an award for that, but I think like the neighboring town had it, and it was sort of this rivalry that they set up, and so everybody got a rubber chicken, and at the right time we're all supposed to throw it. And I don't know if I was just kind of not into it or whatever, but I wound up taking my rubber chicken, and I didn't know what to do with it, so I went to this bar and I just started drinking at the bar. And apparently they counted up all the rubber chickens, and they were one short of winning the Guinness Book of World Records. And they're like, "What in the hell? Like, what happened? Did somebody not throw it?" And then I'm just sitting there with my rubber chicken, and I wasn't a fan, or they weren't a fan of mine. But yeah, and so like in the movie, we're like we wanted to have a thing where then I'm supposed to do a comedy show, everybody knowing that I'm the guy that fucked their whole Guinness Book of World Records rubber chicken thing. So yeah, doing comedy in front of an audience that already hates you is always hilarious. So any way that you can get there. But we didn't quite get to it. But yeah, it would have been too much to be able to, for one thing, shoot at a location that looks like Grand Rapids, Michigan. And that's always a tough thing, too. It's like California has a lot of great locations, but making it look like the Midwest is pretty tricky. And also, there was going to be too much money for the rubber chickens, or what was the other thing? Oh, just too many people. There would have been just like 50 or 100 people, and that's tough to do, too.
Yeah.
In terms of capturing the mindset of a comic and the heckling, I mean, how do you endure that? The scene was it Clifton Collins Jr.?
Oh yeah, isn't he great? Yeah,
I mean, he's great in the scene, but that happens.
That story I'll tell you right now, and we gave him special thanks. It's a story that my buddy Mike Carano told me that happened to him. And I was just laughing so hard. I was like, we got to put that in the movie. And I told Greg, and he was like, yeah, please tell my story. So that's a literal thing that happened. Some guy who, when he was done, was just sitting over there at the bar and with these hot chicks or whatever, and then just started heckling him. And he was up there trying to sing his song. It's like, aren't you the guy that just did the whole thing about your brother killing himself or whatever? And it's like, why are you being such a dick to me? But it just sounded like such a nightmare. We were like, yeah, that's definitely something that we want in there. Yeah. So.
And Clifton, I mean, there's a lot of comics in the movie who do a great job, but he's a fantastic actor, dramatic actor. He's got a great sense of humor too, and he could also do that. But he's got that absolute artistry about him. And when he's doing that scene, I mean, we knew that it was going to be something kind of special because of how deep he went into it and how realistic. Yeah.
Were there other stories? I'm just curious, like trying to separate, you from what happened to you to like, what was there another scene in the film that happened to somebody else that you're like, that's gold?
Yes, yeah. The only other one, I mean, almost from beginning to the end, we can point out an actual thing from my life. I mean, the parking meter, definitely. The adjudicator scene at the end where I'm fumbling with the voicemail messages, like all that. The sex scene is a little bit of a stretch of imagination there, but that is a combination of a couple things. Well, for one thing, Tig Notaro in real life was going through an adoption process.
Yeah, and she did ask a friend of hers, if you saw her documentary, Tig, she did ask her best friend from childhood, from growing up, to father her child in vitro, though, and it failed. And she did go through a lot of that, and they are married in real life. Tig and Stephanie.
Yeah, and then it's also my dad, who's 88 years old, who was playing the slot machine in the thing. Yeah. That's my dad. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
He's great. You just shine the camera on him. He's always great. But yeah, I'm
not gonna lie. I was like, oh my God, who is that guy?
Yeah, he told me a story one time about it was such a ridiculous story about like back in this would have gone back probably to the 40s before they had in vitro, I guess, or pretty much anything. And yeah, about a friend of his or something that was asked by somebody's husband, like if he could impregnate his wife or something like that, and then he kept on paying for them to get a hotel, and then I guess he pulled out. It just sounded ridiculous to me, and I think it's really important because Greg and I have struggled with this. I hope everybody knows there was never even, it couldn't be further away from our intention to make people think that I did that on purpose. That was supposed to be 100% me screwing up like I do throughout the movie. But now that it's done and it's locked, and there have been a couple of people, not a lot, but every now and then I'll run into somebody and they'll be like, that was so awful what you did to that girl. And I'm like, oh God, if you thought that I did that on purpose, like we wouldn't have treated it nearly that lightly, the way that she at the end is like, hey, as soon as she stops vomiting, it's like that wouldn't have been the way that we treated it. But that's
Did you like the movie?
interesting.
Yeah, I like the movie, except for the rape.
Yeah, it's like interesting. It's an interesting study in film. The fact that you can have a little line here that you can, that you're trying to get on one side of, and you kind of, for some people, get on the other side of it. I don't know.
How long, Greg? How long was the shoot?
The shoot was about 3 weeks long, which is kind of it's short. It's kind of standard for this kind of budget. The budget was $500,000, which is a budget that comes back a lot in conversations when you talk to independent filmmakers, and for that money, with this many characters and these many locations, you have to work very quickly. So we had 2 cameras, which is a very common thing to do now, and a great cinematographer, Bryce Fortner, who really knows how to cross shoot and how to move very quickly. And we had a very good understanding, and we worked together. We didn't even have we didn't break down shots or anything. We just talked about it and said, this is what we're going to do. You understand? Yeah, exactly. Let's go. And so. So that's how we managed to, and we worked quickly, which allowed the actors to stay fresh, which is always extremely important to us. Yeah.
And with obviously your background as a comic and the other actors you work with, Sarah Silverman, J.K. Simmons, who I'm still terrified of after Whiplash.
I purposely didn't see Whiplash before we shot.
You're lucky.
Yeah. I knew I was going to be terrified.
Yeah, not my tempo. But that's why he won the Oscar. But because you're working with all this talent, all these comics who improvise, was there room for a lot of that?
We were very welcoming of it. Like, we were very lucky to have the asset of, I've been doing comedy for 20 years now, and a lot of it on the road. We were able to get so many talented people who are actors, but also that do stand-up comedy. And if there was ever a flaw, in it's like, hey, if you say this term differently, then by no means feel like you have to say the one that we're saying. And a lot of times you get a better performance that way because it feels like it's rolling off their tongue, as opposed to like, it's hard to say something that doesn't feel natural to you.
Yeah, and I think that Tig is a good example of someone who always had a specific way of saying something that we had written, and she was able to change it. She came up with a couple of lines you guys laughed pretty hard at that weren't ours. They were hers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
wearing bonnets, old-fashioned way. Yeah.
So there wasn't. We didn't go through improvisation really with the actors. The script was respected, but there was ad-libbing quite a bit, and it was always. We're always open, and I'm always open to hearing something better than what we wrote, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't,
It's different style, I mean, I think in plays a lot, it's the playwright is usually like, well, wait a second, I said, not the, or whatever, and it's like stuff like that, yeah, and that's a different art form. It's like poetry, whereas what we're doing is the opposite of poetry, I guess. Yeah.
When you're on the road, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, you're by yourself, and sometimes the places you stay at are, it's not the Four Seasons. Let's face it. Like, I mean,
I'm right here. No, I'm just kidding.
But what is the mindset that makes you like keep going and just being like, it's going to get better, and then you get a great gig where it's like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing?
Meeting girls, no, that's not as much of a thing. I'm in a happy relationship. I want to say that because I think we're taping, so I want to make sure that's it. No, I think it's extreme. Like, there's nothing compares to that feeling of connecting with a group of people. And Greg and I were in the back the whole time, and I got to say, you are definitely the best audience that we've had for this movie. Yeah,
we heard you.
We've
outside.
Been a lot of places. It sounds like a cheesy thing that somebody would say to ingratiate, but it's truly true. We were just so happy of it, and that's really what you're looking for, is hoping that people watch it and just go, oh yeah, okay, I know exactly what they're, you're communicating.
The only audience that compared was Doug Stanhope's friends at his place in the desert.
That was a really good one too. Actually, I take it back. That was the best one. You guys are the second. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, connecting with people, laughter, being a part of something live, it's incredible. Yeah.
The live, when you get live, it's infectious.
It is, and it's addictive. I mean, you said you knew a couple of stand-up comics, and it's like, I think even after they get enormously famous and don't need stand-up anymore, they still go out and do it. I mean, it's like Seinfeld still does it. It's very addictive. Yeah.
You need to do it. You need to continue.
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't.
I don't, but,
Well, I want to take a question from Jim. Jim, you out there? Jim, is there a Jim here? There's got to be a Jim here. I mean, it's Jim.
I think it's the guy who
Okay,
just
well,
left.
Jim, anyway, asks, how did you assemble this cast?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, well, there was a little bit of a challenge because this is, I would say this is an unfortunate thing, a development from the first movie to the second one, and that's the fact that it's a cold, hard reality that the more well-known the cast members are, the more likely that people will watch your film. And at first I thought about that, and I thought, well, that sucks, because I'm not like that. But then I'm like, let's face it, if all things are equal and you're seeing there's two movie theaters that you can go in and one of them has somebody that you've heard of, you tend to go into that one, and it sucks. So whereas, but at the same time, you want to get people that are good, that you want to work with, that know the thing. And a lot of times to find somebody that's well known and also is somebody who fits the particular style that you're doing is really difficult. So it was definitely, I think, the most difficult part of the process. The short answer, which is too late for that, but is just a lot of friends, a little bit of begging, and a couple of people like Al Madrigal, who's a great friend of mine, and we did like Comedy Central like 10 years ago. he and I were just at a party one time, and he was a fan of the first movie, and he goes, "Hey, man, if you want me to be in the second one, I'll do it." And I was like, "I'm gonna hit you up on that," because so sometimes it was that easy, and then sometimes it was having to get, for example, Mike Judge, who had been a fan of our earlier work, sent a nice letter to J.K. Simmons because they had worked together and said, "You got to watch the first movie. Read the new script and decide if you want to be a part of this." He didn't do it for the money, let's just put it that way. But so yeah,
and so I think essentially almost everyone in this film had either seen the first one years ago or saw it through word of mouth as we were casting, and most of them were friends of Henry's and some friends we have in common. So it was the first one helped us to get some street cred among the community of actors that we were actually admiring for the second one.
You know, a lot of times when you know you're watching a film like this or the first movie, it's like the trials and tribulations of being on the road, being a stand-up comic. But what's your favorite gig? Like your best gig? You know, one that stands out that you'll cherish forever.
Well,
it's right here,
I'll
it?
tell you that. Well, yeah, right now. No, this is good, but the first one that comes to mind, so maybe that's the right one, is in England in 2012 in London. I was only the mere opening act for Doug Stanhope, who plays our cab dispatcher. Who would have known that guy is he's great. Who also acted in a great Louis episode that you guys should check out. It's like he's just a terrific actor and a comedian, and but yeah, he's a big seller out there in the UK, and he brought me on to open for him, and it was a great show. There were 3,000 people out there, and in a completely different city, different country. It's a different country, right? Yeah.
Not for
Greg's
long.
French, so he always always corrects me on these things. But no, yeah, that one was pretty stellar, and you know, that one, and then I don't know, maybe some gig that I was headlining that only had 40 people in it, but we had a nice time. So,
But I remember Henry's first gig as a stand-up, which I attended when we were in college.
Yeah.
And it was at the Highland Grounds, which doesn't exist anymore. It was on Highland.
Highland Ground.
And
remember that place?
Yeah,
Oh, it's
that was good.
fantastic.
And then it became street. Then it became something else. And yeah, and it was an open mic, and we were 22, you know. And Henry said, "Yeah, I'm gonna." You know, he played me the song, you know, "What You Want Me to Do About It." He said, "Yeah, this song I played for a friend of mine who was sad."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I'm going to play that on stage, and a couple others want to come." I said, "Yeah." And that's a strong memory of when we thought, "Yeah, we got to make a movie about you." Yeah.
Yeah, that song is the first comedy song that I ever wrote, and here it is 22 years later in a movie. Yeah, so.
Same problems in the world since then.
Yeah, I didn't change the lyrics much. It's environment, Middle East, economy. As long as you stick to those three, you'll always be topical.
Robert, are you here? Is there a Robert here? Robert, okay,
Oh,
very
hey,
good.
yeah. Robert is in the first
Everybody
movie.
say hi, Robert.
Yeah.
Robert asks, was it easier to film together like this the second time around?
I think, yeah.
I think no.
And how
You
so?
don't think no? Okay, yeah.
Was it easier?
disagree.
No, I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was a little more organized the second time around. We had more freedom the first time around. Just a little more freedom of scheduling and timing, and the first time was ultra low modified, budget, so we could mix SAG and non-SAG. We didn't, we had to pick our friends who weren't necessarily actors. Second time around was a little tougher, but it flowed better. We were more prepared.
Well,
of course,
we had
yeah.
having two cameras was amazing, because I felt like with the first movie, I always was like, oh, can we do it again? Like, I don't feel like we got it. And here, I always felt like we had it. Like, I was just like,
sure.
And I guess because of the two cameras, from what I understand, you're shooting twice as much. I don't know. I don't know much about how that works.
I think we got the answer. It was harder for me and easier for you.
Yeah,
the
but
second
it's
time.
like, but we didn't communicate as much as we probably did on the first one, Robert. Yeah, it was a little bit different. He was sort of doing his thing, and I'm doing my thing,
Yeah.
I want to ask about, Greg, for you, advice you would have for aspiring filmmakers, especially working on such a sort of guerrilla style like you do.
Filmmakers, or not actors, but behind the camera. Filmmakers, I would say, now that, it's a cliche, but it's something that Jean-Pierre Jeunet told me when I was an aspiring filmmaker. And
Greg's French. I don't know if it is. If you don't say that you're French, it just sounds like you're being a douche. When you say that.
Yes. Can I be both?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So Jean-Pierre Jeunet, who directed Amélie and many other films, he said, well, if you're going to make a film, now technology exists to make a film that's cheap. He was at the time he was talking about DV, mini DV. Just go for it. You should do it. Show that you've got something to say. Show that you're clever or that you're different, and don't try to imitate somebody. Just do something very simple, very short, very cheap, and that you can control. And I would say, yeah, that's the great advice today more than ever. You can take an HD camera, you can take your iPhone, and you can actually. Vine doesn't exist anymore, but Viners, managed to show the world that, you can do something that's just 6 or 7 seconds long or whatever, and that's very funny and that it's memorable. Well, you can make a short film that's memorable. You won't make money off of a short film, but if you don't throw yourself in and actually show that you have something special, if you just try to imitate other people, nobody's going to care, so it has to be something personal.
I just want to add, and this is just as an observer, it's like I would have never thought we would have been able to make 2 movies ever. But Greg has a thing about him where it's just like, this is going to happen. It's going to, somehow or another, we're going to do this. And it's like, and we've done it twice now. I think that's probably something that you have that I think everybody, I don't have it, but everybody should have it. It's like, somehow or another, we're getting this done. We're going to make a movie. I don't know. We'll use credit cards, whatever. It's just like, somehow or another, we're going to. There was never a doubt in his mind that we were going to make this movie, and I doubted it all the entire way, So I think that you have to have a little bit of that, and that's why I'm not a director. All right.
Well, the last question I have for you, Henry, is advice you would have for aspiring stand-up comics.
I've been asked this a couple times, so that's why I have an answer at the ready, which is kind of what I started out saying, is that's just, I spent so much time in the beginning of my career being on stage and trying to be funny, but there was a part of me, and it might have been a leftover part of my wanting to be a rock star when I was a teenager, that I was still trying to be cool at the same time. Like, I still wanted to have pictures that made me look cool, and like, I had these album covers with like, cool, just nonchalant way about me on stage, kind of non-committal, and I just never wanted to have anybody laughing at me for the wrong reasons, and I really wish I didn't have that. And it wasn't until somewhere around the time that we made the first movie that I was like, well, shit, all the biggest laughs that I get in my life are me telling Greg this ridiculous, stupid thing that I did, or just like how I was at the elevator and I had all these people looking at me because I didn't know where I was going. It's like that. If I would have figured that out a lot earlier, remember, embarrassing is funny, and if you're trying to look cool, you're going contrary to the very endeavor that you're trying to do. You just have to let go of the whole being cool thing. Failure is funny. It's always hilarious. I look at Albert Brooks' Modern Romance. It's like one of the most hilarious movies ever, and it's just about how he's just such a miserable failure at this relationship, and all of it, the Pink Panther, it's like Peter Sellers, The Party, whatever. It's like Woody Allen, all of it. It's Broadway Danny Rose, that to me is something that I didn't learn until way too far into it. Yeah.
Also, you can't succeed until you fail.
That's true.
That is absolutely true. And Punching Henry is streaming now. It's opens in theaters this Friday. So please spread the word.
It's in Santa Monica,
at
the Laemmle, and we're going to be there Friday and Saturday night doing our shtick that we just did right now. And
And I want to thank SAG-AFTRA.
Because absolutely,
SAG-AFTRA Foundation.
Yeah. I want to thank you also, and I want to thank Luca Costa, who put in money invested money in this. Who's one of our producers back there, Luca. Thank you.
All right.
And thanks to everybody who made it happen. Thanks, Luca.
And Luca, he's an artist too. He doesn't care if he'll ever see this money again. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You said that 3 times now.
I think it's funny.
Sorry, buddy.
But yeah, we should say, because it is a struggle. So if you have friends you want to tell them to come to Santa Monica and see it at the Laemmle, that would help us out a lot. So, and thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thanks very
ladies and
much.
gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thanks.